Hello, hello, and welcome to Muddy River Clay. My name is Mark, and I'm talking to you from beautiful Eugene, Oregon. Today, we're going to walk through making some of these little guys that I call clay souls. And you can make these very easily with some leftover clay, and you can have fun with the faces. I love making face art. And if you can hear, I also have bits of clay in there to make them a rattle. So these are just approximately 6 inches tall, and I'll show you they're pretty easy to make. And let's get started. So tool wise today, really simple. I've got a pin tool, which if you do pottery is probably going to be your favorite tool. I'm using newsprint. You can use recycled newsprint that I have, or you can use really any kind of paper. I've got clay slabs already rolled out just so that we have to do it with that process. And then as far as what goes inside, what I've been doing is just keeping bits of clay. So typically when you go over your wire tool or you're cleaning up, you're going to have these little balls of clay. And if you get clay that you know is probably not going to be usable, instead of throwing it away, kind of ball it up, keep it in a jar, let it dry out, and then you can wrap that up in the piece. So that's all we need really today. And let's take a look. All right. So process wise, I'm going to go ahead and start by crumpling up some paper. So crumple that off. This is where you're going to want to get a sense of your shape. So as you can see from a finished one here, you can make them larger, smaller, chunky or not. But before I finish rolling that paper up, I'm going to take a few of these beads, and it doesn't take too many, and I just kind of put them inside the newspaper. And then I roll that up. All right. So that's going to be the inside. Now I'm going to take some clay, roll over it. And then this is where the magic happens, right? This is where your creativity comes in. I've just taken this clay out of the bag, so I'm not going to slip and score. I'm going to actually just kind of bring it together here and start making a shape out of it. So I'm not really worried about seams and all of that. And then size wise, again, depending on how large or small you want these to be, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get that down a little bit. Now, lots of things you can do here for the seams. If you want to take the time and slip and score and put that all together, that's great. I know there's going to be people who have some really specific feelings about that. The way I look at these little sculptures is they're not going to hold water and they're not going to have a need to have a perfect seam. So some of the things that I like to do is kind of rub the clay pieces together. Also like to use the surface that I'm working on. I've got this plate that's made for cooking, but it's a really great non-stick surface to be able to move things around and just get it to be the shape that I want. All right, so that's starting to take shape now. I've got the upper section, which is going to be the face and head. I've got the main body section. And I sell these at shows at kind of a lower price, so I don't spend a lot of time with arms and appendages and things like that, because that's a lot more time and energy for a piece that is going to not sell for very much. So these are really meant to just kind of draw people to the booth. So what I'm doing now is just getting a rough form for the head and the body, just to get like a rough outline. Starting to think now what this piece will look like. I have a sense of what they're going to turn out to be, but each one really has its own personality. So this one, for example, looks to me like it wants to look up. So I'll go ahead and put the face on the top versus having it looking forward. So let's get all these seams cleaned up. And then the next thing that I'll do is I do like to stamp my pieces. I had a stamp made by someone online. My studio is called Muddy River Clay. That's named after my puppy dog, River. So got that on the bottom there. All right, so next up is the face. When making the face, try and get a sense of what you think it's going to look like. Where do you want the eyes and nose? There's the traditional making of a face where the eyes are exactly as far apart as the nose. A lot of times I like to move the eyes out a little bit just so that it has a more whimsical design. But one of the ways to kind of determine that is to just start feeling the clay between your fingers and getting a sense of where the eyes want to be and then where does the nose want to be. So you just get kind of that rough outline. And then I take balls of clay. And again, if this clay wasn't right out of the bag, I'd want to slip and score. Again, I know there's going to be people who say slip and score anyway. You do you. But in this case, I want them to have closed eyes. So I'm going to reform that a little bit. And I'm just going to use a pin tool to create the eyelids. And then we can add some lashes. And again, these are whimsical pieces just made to make people smile, not to be in some museum somewhere. So have some fun with it. All right, so for the nose, you can do this a couple ways as well. So I've got a ball of clay that I'm going to put here in the middle, and I'm going to give that some shape. I didn't this time. but typically start with the nose so I don't mess up my eyes. Kind of get that into place. And I'm gonna use just a little bit of water on a brush to get that to go where I want it to. I'm gonna take 2 more balls of clay, and that's going to be the nostrils. Get them as close to the same size as possible. Okay, and then you've got the nostrils, which I'm going to go back and use my pen tool and truly make nostrils. These don't have to go all the way through. Again, I've got clay pieces in there, so I will put some holes in the bottom to let the air escape while it's firing, but I don't necessarily want big holes where the chunks of clay inside come out. All right, so now we're cooking. We are getting a nose. I'm gonna clean that up just a little bit. Okay, and start to think about a face, right? So there's the indentations that come to the mouth, which is the next piece. Make the mouth, and you could have used your pen tool for this. You could play with your fingers, just a little bit of water. People get upset when you add water to clay, and I get it. If you add too much, it can make a mess. If you're adding just a little bit here and there, it works. All right, so we're getting there. Now we need a lower lid. We'll put that underneath, make sure everything's smoothed in. And then what kind of vibe do you want to give off? Is this little soul happy? Hopefully, a lot going on in the world. So anything we can do to help lift people's spirits, I think is always a good idea. So I'm going to go back over the lips, finish that off, and then give those little creases in the lips. All right, we're looking good. So now what I think about is hair, and I do use different rollers, and you can just do anything you want really with hair. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some clay, and you can make lines in the clay, but just to give the image of hair, I'm going to go ahead and have some flowing hair on this little soul. So it looks like she's coming out to want to have kind of that feminine vibe. So looks like we have a female piece here. And I like to have the hair flow have some kind of movement. So I'll take a piece that'll go this way, and I'll take another piece that'll go that way and join them. And that'll be the base. And then you might want to come in with some reinforcements, kind of like if you've ever done some construction, that molding goes on the outside to hide any seams that you've made. Same thing with clay. And then now you're just kind of having fun. Do you want to have some twists in the hair? And the reason I don't slip and score is I usually come back over the top and squish it in this way and get some design in the hair. And having this big flowy hair means I don't have to make ears, which is just one more element, which again, if I were making a fancy piece that was going to go in a gallery or something, I would spend that time. These are just fun, whimsical pieces. All right, I'm going to stop there. The last thing I'm going to do is go ahead and give the body some shape or texture. All right, so I have a roller here. You could use any texture design that you like. I like the flowers here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add like a scarf or the top, just something that clarifies where the face begins and where the body begins. And then that's the face. You can certainly glaze them, but using different colored oxides are a nice way to kind of bring out the specifics that you have. So I'll go ahead and clean this element up. And then the final step for me is, remember, there are some clay pieces that are inside this piece. So I hope they're dry, but anytime you have an open or a closed form, you're going to want to have a little bit of access for things to flow out during the firing. So I am going to go ahead and poke just a couple holes in the bottom, and then that way the air can escape during the firing. And that's it. So again, this is what we were doing. Really simple project. Just getting a body and the face, some hair, and whatever designs or elements you want to add to make your very own clay soul.